Hello, everyone. My name is Philip Palumbo, the host of the Palumbo podcast. Today, we have with us Joe Camberato, who is the CEO of National Business Capital for the last 15 years, which is a fintech platform for business lending. This podcast is all about learning about entrepreneurs and how they got to the top, and Joe surely has gone to the top. So, Joe, thank you so much for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Phil. I appreciate it as well, too.
All right, awesome. So, Joe, if you don't mind, let's start with telling my audience on what you do exactly.
Yeah, so I founded National back in 2007. We've grown into become one of the leading fintech marketplaces in the country for small business lending. So what that means is we help small to medium-sized owners access capital. They apply in one place. We have over 75 different lenders on my platform, and myself and my team helps match owners to the right lender. And we do that very quickly. We have everything from SBA to lines of credit to term loan to equipment financing to inventory lines, really every type of lending that you would need. And from the structure, from the process, and having a great team that helps match owners to the right lending, we've helped secure $2 billion now for owners in all types of industries all across the country.
Oh, good for you. Congratulations with your success. So, Joe, let's start from the beginning. So how did you get involved in becoming an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I always knew I wanted to do something. I didn't know what that was, and I want to have some sort of a business. And I was in actually the consumer mortgage business, and I just happened to have a lot of referrals from accountants, and they were self-employed customers, and they all had challenges getting a mortgage. They maybe showed enough income, whatever it was. And a lot of them kept asking me for a business loan. I didn't understand. I would say to them, well, why don't you just go to a bank? You've got a great business. And they said, oh, the banks are a pain. I don't have enough assets. I don't show enough income, whatever it was. It was such a big challenge. And, finally, one of those customers said, hey, can't you help me? You have all these bank relationships. Well, one of the banks I work with had a commercial division. So I, went to them and I said, I've got this great customer. They're local. Built a great business, restaurants, multiple restaurants, catering facility, weddings, and well-known in Long Island. And I said he wants to really expand and open up another catering facility. Long story short, they laughed at me and they said, we'll never fund a restaurant business. And I said, all right, well, can you point me in the right direction? And they pointed me to this private lender, sent me to another private lender. Ultimately, I wound up finding them a home and got them funded. Got them the funding they need to expand their business. I watched them grow. It was amazing. It really fascinated me. And I found this whole world of private lending. And I said, wow, it's so crazy to me. And this is back in this is going back to 05, 06. A lot of these lenders didn't have a website at the time, but it was amazing to me that there were solutions out there. There were lenders that were business focused. Some of them were large, some of them were publicly traded. And no one knew about them unless you found them through you're an accountant or an advisor or through a relationship. And I said, wow, I said, there's all these places out there. It fascinated me. And I said, I want to be this guy, this consultant that helps owners access capital to grow their business. And I said, no owner, as an entrepreneur, if you've got a great business and an opportunity to grow, you shouldn't be held back by growing that business. It's just because of capital. And I also felt like at the time, I saw all these owners, either refinancing their house or using home equity credit lines to fuel their companies. And in, around 07, I said, what was happening in the mortgage business just didn't seem right. Things didn't make sense. I was young, but I was, mature enough to identify that. And I said, well, if home prices don't keep going like this and rates don't stay low and things tighten up and change, all of these owners are going to need access to capital, and they're not going to be able to do it through home equity credit lines anymore. So, I incorporated 07 and kind of went off on this mission and went right into the 08, 09 recession. It was a scary time, but it was a great, very early lesson to have in business. At the time, it didn't feel that way. I had, was trying to build the business and also fuel my personal lifestyle, which is not fun to do in the beginning. And any entrepreneur knows that. I mean, I had my house on the line, everything, credit cards, you name it. And, fought through that like a warrior and just kept going. And then just kept, building processes, technology, people. And and just, continue to scale the company. I did it all without, private equity. It wasn't easy, but we've become a leader now in the fintech or alternative business lending world. It's been really amazing.
That's great. Good for you. So tell me, did you always want to have your own business? How did this all start?
I did. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do something. I was always very entrepreneurial from a young age. I was like the kid selling candy in school. And, I used to find old bikes in the neighborhood, fix them up and sell them. And, I was always trying to do anything to make, money from a young age, and, always working hard, always hustling, and I always wanted to do something entrepreneurial. I really just didn't know what it was. And I think the opportunity kind of presented itself, and I just kind of ran with it, and, went off on my own.
Were you nervous when you first incorporated? Were you married?
I wasn't married. I was single. I was 25 years old, so I was young. I think you're kind of drunk off your own potion. So it was like, it's it's like mystical in the beginning. It's exciting, and you get going. And I think, you talk to different owners, you completely underestimate the time it's going to take to build, right? You completely underestimate what it's going to cost. And honestly, it's probably a good thing, because you're kind of forced into it. Now, it's either you keep going and you power through it, you just figure it out, or you just crumble and you throw in the towel and you quit and you walk away from it. And I was like at that, crossroads, especially when, the crash happened. I racked up over $100,000 in credit card debt, and had 6 figures of money that I saved, 401k, you name it. I went to like $700 on my bank account. It was a very scary time. The world was like crumbling in that recession, and I just fought through it. I powered through it, and just kept, fighting, and just slowly and steadily climbed out of that, cleaned everything up, and just kept constantly reinvesting into the business. And it really took about 7 years for it all to come together. And, you talk to people. I think if you told me that back then, I'd be like, yeah, right, 7 years, I'll have this figured out. I thought I was gonna have it figured out in a year, and, there's so many things to learn with starting a company, especially from zero.
Right.
You've got to learn, people. You've got to learn how to build out processes, infrastructure, accounting, bookkeeping, marketing, sales. The process of all that. It's a lot of things. And I think sometimes people think, and owners think, that because they're good at whatever it is that they do, like if you're a contractor, you're good at construction, it's way different running a business. If you're a great cook, it's different owning a restaurant. If you're a great doctor, that's amazing, but building a practice is different. And it takes a lot of different skill sets. It takes people, and it just takes time. So I completely underestimated the what I thought would take the time, but I stuck with it. But at year 6, I didn't know if it was all worth it. It was just the business builds, and you're dealing with a lot of things at once, and you're really going to learn how to put the right people in place, management in place, and really pull yourself out of the day-to-day. That was the hardest thing for me, and I think the hardest thing for any entrepreneur, is to get themselves out of the day-to-day.
It's true. So walk me through when you're in that moment, fighting that first year, 2, 3, 4 years, and did you ever second guess yourself or think about taking another route? And when you did have that feeling, you pushed through. Just walk us through that dynamic and what it was like, and what got you to push through, and then to eventually 15 years later to be where you are today.
Yeah, it's a really great question, Phil. And absolutely. I thought about throwing in the towel. I thought about walking away, and I worked hard, saved up a bunch of money, and had debt and money into this thing. And you're like, there's points where I'm like, what did I do? And so if I would have walked away at that moment, if I would have told you this story now, you would say, well, of course it made sense. And what could have you done?
Right.
But I knew if I walked away, because I knew there was a real opportunity. I knew that I was onto something. I knew that if I walked away, I would have never like forgive, like I would have never let that go. And I knew that I wouldn't be able to live with that. And I knew that at the very least I had to give it like my all before I just walked away. And one of the biggest things, because that was, these are crazy times. This is 08, 09, 010. This is coming out of like a huge financial crash, and it was devastating for a lot of people. So, I think that the biggest thing that got me through it was really my mindset. I knew that I had to keep my mind in check, and I had to show up at the office every day, which initially was my spare bedroom. And then, I got a small office. But I knew that if I didn't show up every day, like, now you've got this debt piling up, you've got bills piling up, you're not bringing enough money in fast enough. You got all these things that are really, really stressful. I knew that if I didn't I had to show up every single day and act like none of that was happening. And I knew that if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be able to make it. And I literally showed up every day and acted like life was good, and it really was not. And I just hustled hard. I worked around the clock.
Wow.
My friends were going out and having a party and whatever. And leading up to 0809, everyone was kind of having a party back then in those times, the 03 through 07, 08, 09. So a lot of people didn't want to give that up. And listen, at my age, I think, that's kind of what most people were doing, right? I sacrificed not going out. I was working till 11, 12 o'clock at night, 1 o'clock in the morning. I'd be, at the office at 7:30, doing it all over again. I worked Saturdays, Sundays, and just grinded and just really worked my way, to overcoming, I think those big challenges in the beginning, and to get the company to a place where I can start, hiring and really growing.
That's great. So, there's a saying in Italian. I won't say it in Italian. I'll say it in English, but it's work hard when you're younger so you can enjoy life when you're older. And, it's kind of the mentality I've always had. And I remember saying it to myself when I started my own, I'd always had Palumbo Wealth Management in the major firms. And I always remember when I first started at 22 years old, right out of college, I hustled and worked hard. I'd work until 10, 11 o'clock at night. I feel like someone hitting the head with a frying pan. Literally, that's how I felt.
Yeah.
And I did that. I pushed hard for like 10, 12 years, and nobody was in the office when I left. Nobody was in the office when I got to the office. And I knew I was giving up. Friends would call me, Phil, meet us at a bar, meet us here, meet us there. And, like, why are you working so hard type thing. But I knew that this was the right thing to do, because eventually when I got married, I was 29 years old and I had children. And now I never missed a kid's, game, whatever it is, basketball, lacrosse, soccer. I'm always there. I'm able to coach now and able to do the things I want to do because I put that time in the beginning. Right. So totally agree with you. And going back to like mindset, we said before, I remember when I launched my own wealth management firm, there was a lot of work to be done. And there were times where it felt like when I ran the marathon, I remember like getting to mile 17, I hit a wall. I'm like, holy cow, I'm going to war, but you keep pushing through it. Then mile like 20 came about. I'm like, oh my gosh, how am I going to finish this marathon? But you just push through it. And I had those moments when I was launching my own firm and going through that process. But like you just said, and I know how you feel, and that's why I asked you that question, because I think it's important for our audience to know that we all go through these moments, as business owners, where you feel like, quote unquote, giving up, but you don't, because you have this certain belief and this passion, you have to finish that, cross that finish line. And it's so important to the process. And, every day, as you know, Joe, there's always things that we have to do to continue to get better and grow, right? Rather than just stay stagnant and just deal with and work with clients. We want to get better. We want to be better at what we're doing, for me, for investing, and so I can perform better for clients. So it's just always this ongoing experience.
The growth doesn't end. I say like the growth ends when you're dead.
Totally, 100%. If you're not growing, you're dying. I really believe that.
Yep.
Why weren't you ever an employee?
Well, I was an employee. I worked. Had first jobs in high school. When I worked in funny story, in 12th grade at PC Richards, I worked part-time. I made $40,000 a year in 12th grade. I worked every single weekend. I worked as many hours I could without going over like the part-time that you're allowed when you're or whatever it is of being under 18. And I used to get in trouble for going over the hours. And I think, at the time, like the substitute teachers made like $35,000 a year, just to put that in perspective. And so, I did that. I've had a number of different jobs, a lot of sales jobs. I worked at a car dealership really young. I was in the mortgage business. So I've always had like sales jobs, always been a top performer. And those were all really great experiences. I took a lot of those different, experiences, and there was other odds and end things that I would do, or, on nights and weekends, anything to make some extra money when I was younger. And I took all those experiences and really rolled it into, when I started the company. But, so even though I was young, I was 25 years old, I still had, a pretty decent amount of work experience at that age. I had jobs that were really beyond my years. When I was in the mortgage business, I was like 20. So I think I started when I was 20 years old. And I remember showing up at people's houses. They're like, I had a deeper voice. So I'd show up, and people would be like, you're Joe? How old are you? And I still have a baby face. But I mean, when I was 20, I looked like I was, 16, so, and they would laugh, but I took it serious. They appreciated it. And I always was a top performer, and you always usually outperform people that were twice my age. And it all just came down to hard work and just caring and wanting to learn, and, being curious, and all that stuff. And so I did have a decent amount of experience rolling into this, but there was a lot of lessons, a lot of learning lessons, starting, especially young. I was hiring, I think I started hiring, my first employee around, I don't know, I was maybe 27, 28 years old. It was fun doing that, first, interview. I was, nervous, and, it's kind of funny when you look back.
Would you ever go back to being an employee?
I don't know. It's hard to tie me down. I'm so entrepreneurial, I can't really see that, but I never like to say I would never do anything. I mean, who knows what happens later on in life.
How do you stay organized?
I have good people around me, that help keep me organized, because I am a visionary. I move fast. I'm not the, I don't have that, that personality of, I don't like slow down for the details. There's certain details that I'm very interested in, that I pay a lot of attention to, the important ones, but, I really help surround myself with good people, whether it's a, great executive, assistant, and a really great team that help, keep me organized and on track. Because I'm just going.
Are you good at delegating?
I am.
And how important is for someone to learn how to delegate versus being such a micro person?
I don't like to micromanage. I think delegation is a learned skill. And I really think you need to learn how to delegate. And I still, have my challenges with it. I think as an owner, especially in the beginning, you don't want to release things. You're afraid to trust people. I remember saying, like, in the beginning, no one could ever do this one thing that I was doing. It's just too complicated. It's whatever. You make up all these reasons. Well, that one thing that I'm talking about, that I'm thinking of now, there's probably been 10 different people, that have done it, in the last, 5 or 10 years, whatever. So, I think in the beginning, you're just really scared to release things. You're scared to hire people. You're scared to trust people, and you really can't grow and scale unless you have trust in other people. You've got to make those good hires, and sometimes you make a hire, they don't work out. You can't give up with that. You have to rehire again. It's an opportunity to find someone who's better, and you just got to keep going. But you've really, you've got to delegate things out, and release yourself. Like, as the business goes, you have to keep replacing the things that you're doing, and I think I've done that well over the years. And if I didn't do that, I mean, we have over 70 internal people, and 25 external people. It's a lot of people to manage. If I didn't have a team, if I didn't delegate things, there'd be no way to be able to have the team that we have, the company that we have. It's just impossible.
Yeah, 100%. And when I learned how to delegate, and I learned the concept of delegation, because especially when I first started the business, first like 10 years, like I wanted to handle the paperwork. I wanted to, speak to the client the whole entire way. And then when it came down to, and just because I felt like nobody can do it as good as I'm going to do it, And then when I learned about delegation and I came down to that moment where I'm like, okay, you're going to take care when the client's ready to come on board. And when the client needs something, you're going to call the client, you're going to take care and walk the client through. And I remember that moment when I started to delegate and I was so nervous. But then once like two or three situations went about and I spoke to the client, I was concerned that the client was going to say, well, I really don't like that you didn't take me through this. And they didn't say anything. And it was just like business as usual. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And then all of a sudden, like all that time freed up for me and then gave me more time to take care of the investment piece, the financial planning piece, and managing clients and speaking to them, et cetera. So delegation for me, and I'm sure every other entrepreneur that may be listening to this, is so tremendous. If you don't know how to delegate and you can't delegate and you're a micro person, there's no way you can grow your business or manage the business efficiently and effectively to perform well for your clients.
100%. I think that's like you hit the nail on the head. And I was just going to say, by you delegating, you're able to give better quality time to your clients.
Yes.
Because you're not worried about, oh my God, I got to do this, I got to do that, I have to get to this.
Right.
And they're going to get better service because you have a team doing those operational things that need to get done, but they are done, they're on point. And I'm sure your customers appreciate that. And then on top of that, I think, you get in the business because you want to win, you want to be successful, you want to make money. But the reality is, once you start making money, like, and you hit goals and go beyond wherever it is that you were thinking, it's really the time that matters. And, if you don't delegate, it doesn't matter how much money you're making. If you can't have some time for yourself and be able to walk out of your business and without, and your business is still able to operate, then what are you really, you're not really building a business, you're just building a job around yourself. And to me, it doesn't make sense.
100% right. I literally was talking to one of my colleagues who works next to my office, great guy, super smart guy. And we were talking about employees, et cetera. And he was saying, he goes, if I don't have this particular employee we were talking about, he goes, I can never have the lifestyle that I have. So yes, it costs money to have that one or two extra employees, but it's money that is so well spent because we can spend more time with our family and enjoy our lifestyle. Because if you're not enjoying your lifestyle, you're not joining your family, then what are we working so hard for?
Exactly right. And I think, too, I think, I've had to, and you sometimes have to take a step or two back to take 5 forward. You may bring on that key hire that you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm spending this. And it actually might affect, your profit, for the year, or what you would pay yourself or whatever. And or you might go through a spurt of hiring and you've got to take a step back in profitability in order to take, massive steps forward. And I think as you grow your business, you're constantly like taking some steps back, growing, some steps back, growing further, and I feel like it's like this never ending, process of that. And, and listen, in the beginning, you got to do what you have to do to get started. You got to do it all. You got to wear all the hats. You got to get things going. But, once things are going, you're driving revenue, you got to start reinvesting and building out the team. Yeah. And don't be afraid to take those steps back.
Totally agree with you. Totally agree. Tell me top three things that you've learned as an entrepreneur that you would tell a young person who's looking to start a business.
Well, one I mentioned is things take way longer than you think. It takes a solid 5 to 7 years to really get your company in a great place, especially if you're starting something from the beginning. So it takes more time. Don't give up. Success is around the corner. I'd say change is constant. Things are going to keep changing. The market's going to keep changing. Don't fight it. Don't let it aggravate you. Fall in love with change. Because I've kept changing. It's what's made me successful. It's what's made our company successful. If I didn't change, we'd be dead in the water. And once I realized, always thought when I got to here that it would be all good, the change is just constant. You got to keep up with that. And just to keep growing, business doesn't stop. The learning doesn't stop. And, I continue to stay curious and continue to learn. And because of that, I pick up new things, build new relationships, and continue to adapt and change in this environment. Look at where we were. The iPhone, I think, came out in 2007. So what is that? 15 years ago. Look at what's changed in the last 15 years. Imagine what the next 15 years are going to look like. And it's only moving faster.
That's right. That's right. Good stuff. Good stuff. And lastly, Joe, when you think about the economy, where we are today and the business that you're in, are you seeing any slowing as a
So
result of people's concerns with possible recession down the road, et cetera?
yeah, people are definitely thinking and concerned. I mean, you turn on the news and every news article is recession, recession, recession. So if you're not concerned, you're like living under a rock. But what's interesting is we're still, people are active, businesses are growing. They're getting back after it. We've been extremely busy. And the customers we see have opportunity and they're taking advantage of it. What I am seeing where there are challenges are businesses that are tied to materials or commodities. So if you're like in the construction, contracting industry, materials are changing. The prices are changing constantly. Oil is going, up and down constantly and more up. We're seeing where owners are having issues right now. They've got the work and people are paying, for the work. Some of them might be delayed because they're delayed in getting paid from something else, but we're still seeing things moving. But when it's tied to materials, we're seeing people that have to price out jobs are mispricing because they're not adjusting their prices often enough.
Right.
And then they're doing work that's really not profitable, either really low margins or even worse in the negative. So you really got to be proactive with your pricing. You can't be afraid to up your prices right now. And people are saying, hey, I don't want to lose customers, but if you're not profitable, then you're not in business. You don't have any customers,
Right.
and you can't service those customers. So, you really got to pay attention to right now. And I think in any market, there's always opportunity. I think in a downturn, in a recession, there's even more opportunity because everyone freaks out and pulls back. So I think it's a real time to be very eyes wide open and know and understanding what's going on. I think it's very different from state to state. I think it's very different from industry to industry. So you can't get wrapped up in what other people are talking about. You got to get wrapped up in your industry and your business and where you're located,
right,
and make decisions based on that. And and listen, my business is lending. If you're in business, you don't have a lending relationship. Now is the time to have those financing relationships in place, whether it's a bank, whether it's a non-bank lender like myself, and whether it's even friends and family. Like, you really want to have those relationships in place because and you want to be prepared, especially financially, because if we do go into downturn, the person with the most money is going to be able to win and take advantage of the opportunity.
Right. I agree. So Joe, you've been great. Thank you for such great advice for all my listeners and feedback, perspectives. Congratulations on all your success. Look forward to you and I growing a relationship together, working together with our clients. So let's stay in touch.
Yeah, same here. Thanks, Phil. I appreciate it. And thanks for having me on the show, and congrats on all your success as well, too.
Thanks, Joe. I appreciate it.